Maya and Derek were both 35, living in Columbus, Ohio, earning the same $91,000 a year, with the exact same $68,000 saved for a down payment on the exact same house. The only difference was what they did with an extra $825 a month. Fast forward 30 years, Maya's house has been paid off for over 16 years. Derek made mortgage payments for 3 straight decades, and when you add up everything they actually own the day they retire, the guy still writing mortgage checks is worth more. You've seen this debate everywhere. One side shows off a burned mortgage document and tells you debt-free is the only real freedom. The other side tells you to invest every spare dollar because the stock market beats your mortgage rate. Full stop. Both of them are selling you half a spreadsheet. Neither video is lying to you exactly. They're each showing you one slide of a 10-slide deck and calling it the whole presentation. The debt-free crowd ignores what a house still costs after the loan disappears. The invest-everything crowd ignores taxes, risk, and 30 years of real life happening in between. So this video runs the full math both sides skip, the property taxes and repairs that never go away no matter what you owe, the mortgage interest deduction most people can't even use anymore, the capital gains bill waiting inside a brokerage account, and what a market downturn actually does if it lands right as you're supposed to retire. If you want the kind of breakdown that includes everything, not just the parts that make a good thumbnail, subscribe right now. This channel runs the real math on the decisions everyone else oversimplifies every single week. Here's the exact moment they split. Maya and Derek closed on identical $340,000 houses in the same month at the same rate, 6.75%, on a 30-year fixed. Both put 20% down, $68,000, leaving a $272,000 loan. Both had a required payment of $1,764 a month. And after bills, savings, and everything else, both had exactly $825 left over every month. Maya grew up watching her parents carry credit card debt into their 60s, and she decided that would never be her. So she threw every extra dollar at the mortgage, paying $2,589 a month instead of the required $1,764. Derek's older brother had drilled one line into him for years, that the market has never lost money over any 30-year stretch in history. So he kept paying the required minimum and invested the $825 instead, into a plain S&P 500 index fund. Maya works as a labor and delivery nurse. Derek manages a small IT team 2 towns over. Neither one thinks of themselves as a finance person, they just each picked a lane and stuck with it. In month 1, both choices sounded completely reasonable. Here's what almost nobody says loudly enough. A paid-off mortgage does not mean a free house. In year 1 alone, before either of them paid down a single extra dollar, that $340,000 home already cost about $10,800 just to keep. Property taxes ran roughly $5,600. Insurance came to about $1,650. Basic maintenance, the boring stuff like gutters, a water heater, a furnace tune-up, added another $3,500. None of that disappears when the mortgage does. It goes up every single year, right along with the value of the house. So the popular version of this debate, the one where paying off your house means you've beaten housing costs forever, is wrong from day one. What actually changes when Maya eventually pays off her loan isn't whether she pays for housing, it's how much and to whom. Fast forward 3 years, month 36. The house they both bought for $340,000 is now worth about $377,000 thanks to normal appreciation of 3.5% a year. Here's where the extra money actually went. Maya has been paying $2,589 a month since day 1. Her loan balance has dropped to $229,865. Subtract that from the current home value and her equity sits at $147,099. Derek has been paying just a required $1,764. His loan balance is higher, $262,684, which puts his equity at $114,280. But Derek has something Maya doesn't have yet, an actual investment account. $825 a month for 36 straight months, growing at an average 8% a year, has turned into $33,442. Notice something about Maya's side of this. $825 times 36 months only adds up to $29,700 in raw payments, but her balance dropped by a little over $3,000 more than that, because paying principal down early also shrinks the interest that would have piled on top of it later. That's the hidden return in a mortgage payoff. It's not just a dollar. It's the interest that dollar would have generated against her. Add it all up. Maya's total position, $147,099. Derek's total position, $147,722. They are, for all practical purposes, tied. Derek is ahead by $623, which is nothing over a 30-year horizon. 3 years in, this whole debate is a coin flip. That's about to change, and not in the direction most people expect. So what actually gets left out of this debate? First, the running costs of just owning a house. Add up property taxes, insurance, and maintenance over 30 years, plus 2 big repairs almost nobody budgets for in advance, a $9,200 HVAC replacement around year 14, and a $13,800 roof around year 22, and you get $573,800. That's the toll for shelter, paid whether or not a mortgage exists by both of them every year forever. Second, the mortgage interest deduction. It used to be the strongest argument for keeping a mortgage around on purpose. Then the tax law changed in 2017 and nearly doubled the standard deduction. Most homeowners no longer itemize at all, which means most people who think they're getting a tax break for carrying a mortgage are chasing a break they can't actually claim anymore. Third, timing. The 3 years where Derek's account barely moved were also the 3 years that mattered most, because money invested at 35 compounds for 30 years, and money invested at 50 compounds for only 15. Every year Maya delays investing to attack the mortgage is a year of compounding she never gets back, no matter how much extra principal she pays. Fourth, taxes on the other side of the ledger. Derek's brokerage account isn't free money either. When he eventually sells, he owes capital gains tax on the growth, which in this case runs close to $140,000. Fifth, liquidity. Maya's equity is locked inside walls and a roof. If she needs $40,000 for anything, she can't peel it off the house. Selling means handing a realtor around 6% of the sales price before she sees a cent. Borrowing against it means a home equity loan with its own rate and its own fees. Either way, the money she has isn't the same as money she can actually spend next Tuesday. Sixth, rate risk in the other direction. Derek's 6.75% is locked for 30 years, but if a job relocation, a divorce, or any of the 100 normal disruptions of real life ever forces him to refinance or sell and rebuy, he's exposed to whatever rates look like on that future date, not the rate he started with. Now jump to the month everyone's been waiting for. Month 160. 13 years and 4 months in, Maya makes her final mortgage payment. She's 48 years old and completely debt-free on a house now worth $537,878, appreciation included. Over those 13-plus years, she paid $140,593 in interest, which is real money. But it's done now, forever. No more mortgage payment ever again. This is the exact moment the debt-free crowd points to and says, see, this is the whole point. And Maya's net worth at this precise moment is $537,578, every bit of it sitting inside the house. Here's the part that gets left out of literally every version of this story online. Derek, who is still writing a mortgage check every single month, is not behind. His loan balance has dropped to $211,490, putting his home equity at $326,388. His investment account, quietly compounding the entire time in the background, has grown to $234,557. Add those together, and Derek's total position is $560,945. Derek is ahead by $23,067, and he still owes money on his house. The gap has flipped completely. At checkpoint 1, they were tied. At checkpoint 2, the guy still carrying debt is winning. But there's a real difference sitting underneath that number. Every single dollar of Maya's wealth is locked inside a house. A large chunk of Derek's is sitting in an account he could touch tomorrow morning if he actually needed to. One more thing hasn't paused during any of this. That $10,800 carrying cost from year one, property tax, insurance, upkeep, has climbed to about $16,200 a year by now. Paid off or not, that bill is due every single year for both of them for the rest of their lives. Now the number that actually matters most: retirement. Both of them are 65. Both of their identical houses, appreciating that same 3.5% a year for 3 straight decades, are now worth $954,310. Both houses are completely paid off. Maya finished her mortgage 17 years ago. Derek's original 30-year loan finally matured right on schedule, the same week he retires. So the house is a wash. It's identical for both of them, right down to the tax and maintenance bill, which has climbed from $10,800 in year one to about $28,700 a year by now. Whatever separates Maya and Derek now lives entirely inside their investment accounts. Derek has been investing $825 a month for the full 30 years, uninterrupted. Before taxes, that account has grown to $1,229,547. After capital gains tax on the growth, called it roughly 15%, he's left with about $1,089,665. Maya only started investing the month her mortgage disappeared, but once it did, she redirected her entire old mortgage payment, $2,589 a month, straight into the market for the next 16 years and 8 months. That's grown to about $1,078,494 before taxes, roughly $994,396 after. Add the paid-off house to each side. Derek's total net worth at retirement, $2,043,974. Maya's total net worth, $1,948,706. Derek is ahead by $95,269. Out of nearly $2 million each, that's roughly a 5% difference, built on 30 years of assuming the market never has a genuinely bad decade at exactly the wrong time. Shift one bad year into the wrong spot on that timeline, and the whole thing could tip the other way. Run the same 30 years but slide a single 40% market drop into year 29 instead of spreading it out evenly, and Derek's ending number moves by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maya's doesn't move at all because her biggest asset was never sitting in the market to begin with. Now, let's be fair to both of them, because that $95,000 gap comes with an asterisk about the size of a house. Derek's plan only works if he actually invests $825 every single month for 30 straight years, through job changes, recessions, and every tempting reason to skip just 1 month. It also assumes the market averages 8% smoothly, which it never actually does. Real markets crash, and if that crash lands in year 29 instead of spreading evenly across 30 years, Derek's final number could be a third lower, close to $400,000 gone in a single bad stretch, and he would still owe a mortgage payment the month he's supposed to retire. That's the real risk hiding inside his plan, a guaranteed bill sitting right next to an account that was never guaranteed at all. Maya's plan carries its own real cost. She spent 13 years contributing nothing to the market while Derek's account quietly compounded in the background. And time in the market is the one ingredient you can never buy back later at any price. If she wasn't already maxing out an employer retirement match before attacking that mortgage, she may have walked away from free money to do it. Her wealth is also concentrated entirely in one illiquid asset. If she needs cash fast for an emergency, a job loss, a medical bill, she can't spend a bedroom. She would have to sell, refinance, or borrow against a house, and every one of those options costs real money the moment she actually uses it. Neither strategy here is free. One trades certainty for growth, the other trades growth for certainty. If that gap surprised you as much as it surprised us when we first ran these numbers, hit like right now so more people actually see the real math. So here's the honest answer, and it is genuinely not the same for everyone, no matter what a headline promises you. Paying off your mortgage aggressively makes the most sense in 4 specific situations. 1, your mortgage rate is 7% or higher, which shrinks or completely erases the gap you just watched play out. 2, you're within 10 years of retirement, and every dollar of guaranteed required income matters more to you than a few extra points of expected growth. 3, you've already maxed out any employer retirement match, so you're not giving up free money to do it. 4, you know from your own track record that extra cash sitting around in a checking account tends to quietly disappear instead of actually getting invested. Investing the difference instead makes more sense in 4 different situations. 1, your mortgage rate is under 5.5%, which is a fairly low bar for the market to clear over multiple decades. 2, you have 15 or more years until retirement, enough runway for real compounding to do its job. 3, you already have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, so liquidity isn't a live problem for you. 4, you have an actual automated system, a real recurring transfer, so the investing happens whether or not you feel motivated that particular month. Notice that none of these 4 and 4 conditions are about which choice is smarter in general. They're entirely about which choice fits the specific decade of life you're actually standing in right now. Here's a question almost nobody in this debate ever asks. What if you don't have to pick a side at all? Split that extra $825, say $400 toward the mortgage and $425 into the market, and you get a third curve that in some scenarios beats both Maya and Derek outright by avoiding the single biggest risk sitting inside each of their approaches. That hybrid math is dense enough to deserve its own full video, so that one's coming. For now, forget the 2 names and every specific number you just heard, and ask yourself 2 much simpler questions instead. What is my actual mortgage rate compared to what I could realistically expect to earn if I invested that same money somewhere else? And how much is it genuinely worth to me in actual peace of mind to owe nothing at all the day I stop working? Your honest answers to those 2 questions matter more than anything a comment section will ever tell you. If this saved you from a bad assumption, tap like before you go. And if you want more breakdowns like this one, honest, math first, no agenda, subscribe, because that is what this channel does every single week. Drop a comment and tell me where you land. Team Payoff, Team Invest, or somewhere in the middle with the hybrid approach. I read every single comment. Run your own numbers before you make the leap. I'll see you in the next one.